Welcome everybody to the fourth class in this series. So we are at the halfway point now. So we are studying the Samādhi Pādaḥ, and let's just recap the flow of contents in this chapter. Now, sometimes these sutras, the way they are written is that the first chapter is for advanced practitioners. That's why the first chapter is pretty a little intense, in the sense it is packed with information. So what I've been trying to do is to expand quite a bit on it, and in fact draw information from the later chapters. We saw that dharana, dhyana, and samadhi I am drawing from the third chapter, and I explained it in the last class. Now we've seen the mind. We saw the four components of the mind, right? Mind in English, it is one word, but in yoga and as well as in Vedanta, the mind has different portions. So the mind has manas, that is the memory and feeling. Ahaṃkāra, the sense of I, the I am a man, a woman, a father, a mother, a son, daughter, all these things. That is how you identify. So the ahaṃkāra, it identifies with the mind and the body. So that is the ahaṃkāra. That's the next portion. This is what you need. Otherwise, the entire thing will collapse. So ahaṃkāra is necessary, but too much false identification with ahaṃkāra causes problems. I am rich, therefore I am better. All those things are the other side of it. So it has some meaning, but too much identification creates issues. Okay, so manas, ahaṃkāra we saw, then buddhi. That's very important. The buddhi is the one that takes decision. That is what distinguishes a human from others, we all know. So manas, buddhi, ahaṃkāra, buddhi, and the final one is the chitta. That is the one where it's like the movie theater of the mind, where images are played. So the pratyaya are the contents of that screen and the sounds and everything. So this is the one that is constantly happening in our head, and this is the closest to the consciousness. Chit iva bhavayati chittam. So chit is the consciousness. That is, like we saw the movie theater example. If you remember the movie theater, we had the example of the screen and the light falling on this. Somewhere here, yeah, we have the light. That is the consciousness. Everything else is inert. The mind is inert. But when this light shines, the whole thing comes alive, and there is understanding and everything going on. And this misidentification is happening here. Okay, the misidentification with the mind, the body, all that is causing problems. The nature of the chitta itself, this is very, very subtle point, and we'll see more of it. So if you don't understand at this point, don't worry. As we go into the fourth chapter especially, this is explained in great detail. So we will understand at that time. Okay, so this is how the chapter is organized. Mind and the fluctuations. Then we saw the nature of the yoga practice. So the sutras are very terse. Every sutra has a potent meaning. Some of these, it can look like cliches. So abhyasa vairagyapyam tannirodha. So the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind are obtained through abhyasa and vairagya. Abhyasa is practice, vairagya is dispassion. We know, oh yes, we have to practice to still the mind. But this dispassion, that's what do you mean by dispassion? But it is extremely important. In fact, Patanjali says in the asampragnata samadhi, the way you reach that is through complete dispassion. And last class, we saw the story of Rishi Saubari. And because of his lingering imprints, when he sees a fish, a fish family, husband fish, wife fish, and children, he gets the desire to have a family of his own. So he gets married, not to one person, to 50 princesses, and he has many children, but still he was unhappy. then he realizes his folly. So we saw that story. Then now we saw the two types of samadhis, sampragnata, asampragnata. Sam means like total or with, prajna means wisdom or cognition. So you are cognizing on something. There is an object or a seed of focus in sampragnata samadhi. And in asampragnata samadhi, there is no seed of focus. So which one is difficult? Obviously, asampragnata samadhi is difficult, and you get to it after sampragnata samadhi. Once you master sampragnata samadhi, you get to asampragnata samadhi. And Patanjali cautions that sometimes, because bhava pratyayo videha prakritilayanam. So sometimes what happens is that people can fall into these states because in the previous janma, they've done a lot of tapas. So, and because of that, they're videha, they are born without bodies, and they live in the state for a long time. And then because of the latent impressions, eventually it ends. And then prakritilayas, people who are merged with prakriti. That's the context under which we saw the story of Rishi Saubari. Okay, so asampragnata samadhi is the other type of samadhi which brings up where the complete disappearance. It's through practice of paravairagyam, great detachment, which brings about the disappearance of the mind, and only the latent impressions remain, but these are rendered dormant. They won't fructify. Okay, and then we saw that for these people who can reach asampragnata samadhi, sometimes through birth, sometimes they're videha and prakritilayas, it's from birth. So bhava pratyayo, bhava means birth, bhavanti means occurrence. So birth, is by nature of the birth, they have this. For the rest, it is shraddha, that is faith, virya, vigor, smriti, that is repeated recollection, samadhi. Here samadhi refers to sampragnata samadhi. So that's where Patanjali says, to get to asampragnata samadhi, you need to perfect sampragnata samadhi, then prajna, that is knowledge or wisdom, these purvaka itaresham, all these precede, purvaka means precede, for itaresham means others, etc., like others. Okay, and this is, we saw that. Then Patanjali says, if your desire to still the mind, that's your highest goal, not something, meditation is something you debate, I have other things to do, how can I squeeze in a few minutes, so I check the box. No, it doesn't work that way. Tīvra samveganam asanaha, yogis with the intense order to still the mind achieve this result quickly. So some vegam means there's like a speed, vegam. So some vegam here means like think of a boulder rolling and becoming bigger, like enthusiasm. Because of this enthusiasm, you in the path, it becomes more and more. So that is samvegam. It is an intense desire, enthusiasm. It is not craving. It is something that you earn for. It is not something, I need pleasure, so I will do that. No, it is something beyond that. It is such a high state that I want to achieve for the sake of it. That is the attitude with which yogis should go about, Patanjali says. Okay, now this is all what we've studied so far. Now Patanjali says, mridu madhyadi matratvat tatopi visheshaha. So he classifies the practice as three kinds. Now you're wondering, this looks like a cliche. Everything is three kinds. One is very less, one is middle, one is extreme. We know that. What's the purpose of this? But this has a hidden meaning. Mridu means mild, madhya means medium, adhimatra means intense practice. So based on the intensity of the yogic practice and dispassion, mild, medium, and strong, there are differences in the progress of even those arduous yogis. So visheshaha means depends on the visheshaha means nature, the speciality, depending on the intensity of this, their progress can be different. Okay. What does he mean by mridu practice? So he doesn't say that. Like I said, the first chapter is a pretty intense chapter meant for advanced yogis. So mridu practice is what in the second chapter he would call kriya yoga. It is tapas svadhyaya Īśvara-praṇidhāna, which is a mild form of practice for lay people, those who are very busy, they have to go into work, take care of children, all that. For those people, he defines the subset. And these subset, later we will see, they're nothing but portions of the niyamas. So there is there are yamas and niyamas, and Patanjali will say this is a subset of the niyamas. And then madhya, medium. This Patanjali calls the Ashtanga Yoga. He doesn't explicitly say, but in the second chapter, he defines the 8 limbs increasing in intensity from the base, which is yama, niyama, then pranayama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, then dharana, dhyana, samadhi. All this is madhya. Then adhimatra, it's intense practice. This is called Raja Yoga. It is the samprajñāta and then leading into asamprajñāta samadhi. This is the intense practice. Okay, so these are the 3 kinds of practice. With this, we've seen the nature of the yoga practice, and we've seen an introduction to the samadhis. Patanjali, well, I told you in detail about samprajñāta and asamprajñāta samadhis. I went into great detail, but Patanjali actually talks about it later. He just mentions it here, and then he defines it in 40 to 51. But I gave it to you much earlier because without the details, it'll be confusing. Okay. Now, Patanjali brings the concept of Īśvara. So we'll see what Īśvara is. So far, are there any questions? So are you able to follow the logical flow so far? Okay, or don't hear. Are you guys able to hear me? Because
Yeah, I can't figure out my reactions this time, but so far so good. Yeah, thank you.
So far so good. Okay, good. Now, the way yoga introduces Īśvara as a way to stilling the mind. Patanjali says, is there any other way to get the mind concentrated other than this order? Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, all these things. Is there another way? Patanjali defines a easier path, and he defines it in 2 places. In fact, some people, those who want to, they're critics, right? There are people who want to critique the Yoga Sutras. They pick this point and say, hey, Patanjali defines the same thing in 2 places. So the entire notion of this 196 or 195 sutras being called sutras is nullified. Because when you talk about sutras, there should be no repetition, because it's information packed as much as possible. Then it has to be expanded. So that is why the whole thing, it's like a packaged food. You cannot read the sutras just like that. It will not make any sense. That is why you need a commentary. And remember, in the first, when I started, I talked about Vyasa. Vyasa's commentary is considered to be the gold standard. And sometimes people, Vyasa just, it's like a title. Veda Vyasa, one who compiled the Vyasa, the person who wrote the Mahabharata, who's considered incarnation of Bhagavan Vishnu, his name is Krishna Dvaipayana, because he was dark. Just like Vishnu, he was dark, and he was born in an island. Not really an island, he was born in a boat to Parashara, Rishi Parashara, and Satyavati. That's why he's called Krishna Dvaipayana. But he was given the title Veda Vyasa, the one who compiled the Vedas. Like that, this Vyasa, this is not the same as that Vyasa, is one who wrote a commentary on the Yoga Sutras. Sometimes people have these, put everything together as sutras, and they themselves write the commentary. So that is one style of doing things, but they just use a different name. So Patanjali introduces the concept of Īśvara. And because he mentions Īśvara in 2 places, people say, you violated the rule of sutras. But this goes to show how important the concept of Īśvara is in yoga. Īśvara-praṇidhāna Va means or. So this concentration, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, remember he said all this, faith, Virya, vigor, Smriti, constant recollection, Samadhi, Samprajñāta Samadhi, all these are needed to attain the Asamprajñāta Samadhi. Or you have a shortcut path, that is through surrender to this entity called Īśvara. Now, if you look at the word here, Patanjali doesn't use the word bhakti or sharanagati. So in Vaishnavism, they use sharanagati, which means complete surrender. Bhakti means devotion, because this is a scientific document. What you're reading is a scientific document. Therefore, he uses the word pranidhana. So Īśvara-praṇidhāna, concentration can also be achieved by total devotion or surrender to this entity called Īśvara. Now we will see what this entity called Īśvara is. Through contemplation on this entity called Īśvara, which is a liberated being, it's the perfect liberated being, the mind, in the normal course, you're going through the day, your mind is disheveled, even such a mind can become calm. Okay, so previously Patanjali defined Samprajñāta Samadhi, all these things to achieve the Asamprajñāta, but Īśvara is such a powerful entity that you can directly go to the Asamprajñāta Samadhi through the contemplation on Īśvara. So Vyasa defines Īśvara-praṇidhāna as offering of all actions to the, later we'll see, Īśvara is defined as a supreme teacher, and the renunciation of the fruits of action. I mean, needless to say, those who attended the Bhagavad Gītā classes, you would know that so much Bhagavan talks about, so much about karma-phala tyaga. In fact, entire chapters are called karma, it's about karma sannyasa. So 5th chapter is called karma sannyasa yoga. 4th chapter in the Bhagavad Gītā is called jnana karma sannyasa yoga, renunciation of the fruits of actions through knowledge. So the yogi is whatever action he does, he is offering it for this entity called Īśvara. The yogi acts but does not claim the result. So this is again vairagyam or dispassion. Okay. So this is like a royal road. In fact, even in the Bhagavad Gītā, there are 2 sets of practices. One is karma yoga, other is jnana yoga. You need to do karma yoga to purify the mind, which includes all the asana practice, beginning stages of meditation. Then jnana yoga is study of the shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam, they call. Listening, understanding the scriptures, knowing the meaning well, and finally contemplating on this nididhyasanam. So these are the 2 sets. Now, if you want a bullet train to go through without hurdles, that is obtained through this Īśvara-praṇidhāna. That's how it is defined. It is not a separate set of practice, but it is a path that helps you go through everything faster. So Swami Hariharananda explains why he gives a logical reason why surrender brings calm. The ego is the primary source of restlessness, according to Swami Hariharananda. When one practices pranidhana or surrender to this higher entity, one consciously negates the ego, because otherwise the ego wants to take control, do everything. When you practice pranidhana, you are completely negating and shutting it out. The results of the action are attributed to Īśvara. What it means is that this, I accept what it is due to the karma, and Bhagavan will guide me, which means I won't be doing future bad karma. That is the attitude with which you go about. There is some bad karma I've done in the past, for which I have to experience, but the surrender will make a very bad experience as just a small stink. In fact, in the Angulimala story in Buddhism, this is some people you might have heard about. You will see that later when we go to the second chapter on ahimsa. Angulimala was a dacoit. So Angula, it's fingers. Mala means garland. So he wore a garland of fingers of people who he killed. He was just notorious and terrifying. When he sees the Buddha, because of his calm, he surrenders to the Buddha. But people, and he surrenders and he becomes a monk. But people know, they found out who he is, so they started throwing stones at him. So he was bleeding and severely injured. But then the Buddha says, "Oh, Brahmana, tolerate this pain. It is nothing. You were destined to suffer in hell for thousands of years, but because you changed your path, that has been become mild. That same karma, if you had gone on this wrong path, you would have suffered so much. But because of your change in your path, you are experiencing it less." So that is one. So Īśvara, surrender to the Īśvara, will make even the bad karma that we were supposed to experience. You cannot avoid the prarabdha karma, but the sting of it would be lesser. So the Īśvara as a pure, safe, and reliable anchor. All other anchors, sometimes anchor is something you can hold the mind onto. So Patanjali is going to talk about all the alambanas. So the Īśvara is a very pure. There's no blemishes in the Īśvara. All other anchors can have blemishes. Īśvara is pure. It is safe and completely reliable. So for the mind to reach Samadhi, it needs some sort of support initially. That is a samprajñata Samadhi. We saw all the cognitions. There is no safer or more stable support than the concept of Īśvara. So the famous story told about in this is the story of Gajendra Moksha. So this comes in the Bhagavatam. So in the Bhagavatam, there is one story interleaved with another. That's how it is. So everything happens because somebody angers a sage. So some celestial being is born as a human or as an animal. So that's what happened. So there was a celestial singer, a Gandharva. His name was Huhu. Look at the name. Huhu was his name. Huhu was, he was with a bunch of nymphs, divine apsaras. He was playing in the waters. And in the water, there was a rishi called Devala who was doing his morning puja. And in a playful and mischievous mood, the rishi was submerged in the water. He was offering prayers to the sun, and he pulled the leg of this rishi. He goes under the water and pulls the leg of the rishi who was bathing and offering prayers. So the rishi, Devala, cursed him. "Since you enjoy pulling legs in the water like a crocodile, may you become a crocodile." So from the heavens, this Gandharva, or the celestial singer, he came to a lake as a crocodile. Okay, who immediately realized his mistake and begged for forgiveness. The rishi said, "I cannot take back the curse, but I can add something to it. You will remain a crocodile till Bhagavan comes and rescues you from the body and gives you moksha." So that is how the crocodile came to the water. Now the elephant. So how the elephant came about. In the Pandya dynasty, there was a great king called Indradyumna, and he was a very devout devotee of Vishnu. And one day, he took a vow of silence. So I'm not going to talk for a certain period of time, a month or something. I'm going to do a tapas on silence. And he was greatly absorbed in meditation. So he went to some place in the mountains and he was doing meditation. And during that time, Rishi Agastya, a very great sage, one of the mind-born sons of Brahma, he comes there. And Agastya, he was hungry and he wanted some food and water for him and his disciples. But the king was deep in meditation, not talking. And the king opens his eyes, but he wouldn't talk. And then the Agastya felt insulted and he gives him a curse too. The curse is, the king is dull-minded and ignorant of proper social etiquette. He sits silently like a dull animal. Therefore, let him enter the darkness of ignorance and become an elephant. So Agastya curses him. But because of his past devotion and bhakti, he had a special boon. This is called, he became an animal. He was born as an animal. He was born as an elephant. But there is something called Jati Smaran, which means we don't remember our past births, but the elephant remembered its past birth. So because it was very devout, so the elephant would always think about Vishnu. So this is the background. Now we'll come to the actual story. So Gajendra was a majestic male elephant, lived in this beautiful jungle in the Trikuta mountain. It is very beautiful place. One day, and it was a very strong elephant, little haughty too. One hot day, Gajendra led his herd to a beautiful lake with a lot of golden, beautiful lotuses. And they drank the water and bathed playfully. Disturbed by the splashing, this crocodile, which was in that lake, it came and clamped its jaws on the elephant. So Gajendra was very strong. So what of course, he tries to fight off the crocodile. He tries to go toward the land, but the crocodile was in the element in the water. So it tries to drag. And this fight went on for 1,000 celestial years, apparently. And slowly, the elephant starts losing its strength. First, the elephant thinks, I can solve all the problems on my own. I am the strongest elephant here. But nothing works. Finally, the elephant, it remembers its past life as Indradyumna and thinks, what would Indradyumna, the king, have done under such a circumstance? Indradyumna would have surrendered to Vishnu. So it remembers that. Then it completely surrenders. It takes a lotus and it offers it as an offering to Vishnu and says, and it utters a prayer, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead from which the material world has emanated. So Vishnu doesn't do anything till he asks for help. So then Vishnu comes very fast, mounted on his mount with a Garuda, with the eagle, and then with the discus, he severs the head of the crocodile. So both the Sudarshana Chakra he uses. So who then resumes his form as a Gandharva. I don't think he gets moksha, but he again goes back to Gandharva. He sings, he's a singer, right? So there's all the stutis. He sings the praises of Vishnu. And Gajendra, because he offered pure bhakti, he attains moksha. So that is the story of devotion. That is complete surrender. When your ego is, sometimes the ego and the planning can only take you so much. Sometimes the best action is to surrender to a higher entity. So that is what the Gajendra Moksha story is about. Okay, so the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gītā is all about bhakti, doing all actions as an offering to Bhagavan, that is God or this entity. So there are 5 steps of the ladder. So Bhagavan first talks about the highest form of bhakti. Chatur Vida Bhajante Mam Jana Sukriti Norjuna Arto jignasu artarti jnani cha bharatarshava tesham jnani nitya yuktaha eka bhaktir vishishyate. The jnani, the realized person, he is the most devout person, the greatest bhakta, the one who's the wise person, the yogi, because that person knows that I am in that person. That is the same consciousness. We saw that in the Vedanta classes. Same consciousness that is all over the universe is also shining through him or her. So Jnana Yoga, that is the highest form. If you can't do that, come one rung lower. Saguna Īśvara Upasana, that is, have a certain, the universe as your as God and worship. If you can't do that, he calls it Abhyasa Yoga, which is God as a special deity, whatever, Rama, Krishna, for some people is Christ. If you can't even do that, come one level lower. He says Karma-Īśvarārpaṇam, which is offer all your actions as an offering to Bhagavan. This is a lot of people do that. Then your ego is squashed. So that is the logic. Okay. All right. Okay. Then he defines what the Īśvara is. Klesha karma vipakāśayai aparamrishta Puruṣa vishesha Īśvara. The Īśvara is the entity which is beyond klesha. Klesha means afflictions, ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, fear of death. All these are afflictions. Klesha, karma, it is beyond all actions, good, bad, or mixed actions. Actions means the effects of actions, good action, bad action, all that. Klesha, karma, vipaka. Vipaka means the fruition or the results of these actions, which is birth, jati, desha, kala, all these things. Birth, lifespan, experiences of pleasure and pain. So this body, they say, is karmajam. It is born from our past karma. And to think that I am the ego is bhranti-janyam. It is delusion to think that you are the body is the consciousness. No, the consciousness is different from the body. Body is purely due to your past karma, karmajam. So vipaka means fruition of these results, which results in your birth, what kind of birth you have, your lifespan, all this. Okay, and Patanjali will talk about it later in the second chapter, all these details. Then ashaya. Ashaya means latent deposits. So asha in Indian languages, asay, asha, all this are used with respect to as colloquially as desires, but the word ashaya in Sanskrit, it means latent impressions left behind by the fruition of actions. So this Īśvara is such a pure soul, pure entity, that even if it acts, there's no impressions left on it. And it's like a yogi. Karma ashukla akrishnam yoginaha trividam itaresham. For all of us, the karmas are of three kinds, good, bad, and mixed. For the yogi, the actions don't leave any karma behind, because the yogi does not do with a sense of ego. Okay. And aparamrishtaha Puruṣa vishesha Īśvara. It's a special, vishesha means special. It's a special Puruṣa, distinct, special, a particular Puruṣa, which is this. Okay. Okay. So this word ashaya, grammatically and literally, it's a neutral word. So it can be imprints. It's just imprints, can be good or bad. But in the context of yoga philosophy, it carries a negative connotation, because it is the mechanism that perpetuates bondage from samsara. It's all because of this impressions that you have, the past lives, the cycle continues. Okay. All right. So why Īśvara is outside the karmic circle? The karmic circle comes because of this kleśas, that is the root cause of everything, ignorance, desire. That causes karma, actions, good, bad, mixed. Vipaka, that results in birth and experience, right? And then due to that you act, and there's ashaya, subconscious impressions again left behind. And these, in the future, this is how you do actions, and it perpetuates the cycle. So Īśvara is eternally free of the first link, that is ignorance. So the cycle is cut right here. And Swami Hariharananda, he clarifies why it is special Puruṣa. All Puruṣas are essentially consciousness, right? You agree? Puruṣa is essentially consciousness. Why then, why does Patanjali say it's Puruṣa Vishesha? Why is it a special Puruṣa? In their true nature, every Puruṣa is untouched by kleśas, true. But Īśvara is special because he never even had the apparent association with Prakriti. So these are all very subtle points. I'm slowly introducing all this. Later, we will unpack it in the second and in the fourth chapter. You, the entity called the Puruṣa, you are nothing but a Puruṣa. That is the consciousness. The body that you have is like the cloth you wear. The mind that you have are like the spectacles you use to see the world. Can you say that spectacles is sentient? No. So you are sentient, and you are just the consciousness. Now, in Sankhya, Yoga, and also in Vedanta, all the problem, let me see if I can get a picture of so the example they typically give is that of a crystal, which is okay. Now, you, the Puruṣa, has come close, it's in contact with the body and the mind, right? Think of you as pure, unblemished crystal, transparent crystal. You have no properties, just your nature is Sat Chit Anandam, existence, consciousness, bliss. You just shed consciousness on everything. Your existence and your nature is bliss. That is this crystal which you are. When it comes close to a red flower, the crystal looks red. That is the reason for all the confusion. When the red the Patanjali, finally he'll say, when this is understood, the red flower no longer ceases to exist. It goes back into the Mula Prakriti, which is called Pradhana. So this is the cycle, all these things come, and because the crystal Puruṣa is close to the Prakriti, then all this problem occurs. Then once it realizes, it just dissolves. And what's left behind is the pure crystal. So this happens to all of us. Our Puruṣas, this is what Patanjali says. But for Īśvara, this association never was there. So that is Swami Hariharananda's explanation. Īśvara is the archetype of perfection. Is special because he never had this apparent association with Prakriti that causes bondage for others. And Īśvara serves as the perfect model for the yogi. Meditating, it's a role model. Meditating on Īśvara is meditating on your highest liberated potential. You are, the consciousness is the same, but this Īśvara, so again, this is where some, I'm not going to too much detail because Sankhya, this is where Vedanta and Sankhya are slightly different. Vedanta and Sankhya are almost the same. So much so, I've told you this before. In fact, Shankaracharya has to take great pains to negate Sankhya. And he says, oh, finally after negating, this is the greatest Malyuddha wrestler. This wrestling match was the most difficult match in my life. That's what Shankaracharya says. Because it's so close. In fact, Vedanta borrows most of the stuff from Sankhya. Sankhya is considered the oldest philosophy. Okay. Aparamrishtaha, unaffected. So let's see the time. So if I keep telling stories, then we will be out of time. So one classic example is, there's this example of Samudra Mathanam. So if I go into the story of Samudra Mathanam, then how Indra, everybody, So one person who we have to be very thankful for all the story is who? Can you guess who it is? It is Rishi Durvasa. Durvasati means one who is very difficult to live with. So he's Vasati means it's just living, coexisting. You cannot he gets angry so easily, and he's a rishi, but he has this nature to get angry and give curses. So he curses Indra. Indra, the god of the king of the gods, loses his power. To gain the power, Vishnu says, churn the Ksheerasagaram, the ocean of milk, to get the nectar. But the devas are weak. Asuras, the asuras are strong. Asuras are the people with demonic qualities. Remember, I'm going to use the devas and asuras very often in all these stories. You should know they are not like monsters with canine teeth, tusks and horns. No, it's just people with us who have more demonic qualities. Devas are the ones with divine qualities. Daivasura Sampat Vibhava Yoga, 16th chapter. The same people with these demonic qualities, they are considered asuras. They churn, and they churn using Vasuki, a snake. Poor snake is huffing and puffing and spits venom. So everybody is choking. And Shiva, out of infinite compassion, comes, takes the venom, and he drinks it. So that is aparamrishtaha. They're not, the Īśvara is unaffected by anything in the world. It is unaffected. That's why it's called aparamrishtaha. Okay. Why does Īśvara act if it is aparamrishtaha? This question will come, right? This unaffected by anything. We act to seek pleasure and flee happiness. Īśvara acts due to anukampa, compassion, which is also the law of nature. True nature is compassion, but when your nature is covered by ignorance, selfishness comes. So in the Bhagavad Gītā, so there's a lot of logic behind all this. He says, okay, why, if the Īśvara is doing all this, why Īśvara should act? Everything is logically explained. In the Bhagavad Gītā, it says, Name partasi kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptamavaptavyam vartayeva cha karmani. O Partha, there's nothing that ought to be done for me in these three worlds. Not anything unattained that has to be attained. Yet I engage in action, because if I don't act, others will follow my path and confusion will prevail. And Bhagavan, in the 25th shloka, in a similar way, a wise person, Sakta karmanya vidvansaha yatha kurvanti bharata kuryat vidvans tatha saktaha chikirshur loka sangraham. Just as the unwise performs actions with attachment, wise should perform actions for the welfare of the world. So Īśvara, unaffected by anything, the Īśvara doesn't have to do, but does actions from anukampa, because that is the true nature. Because it's covered in ignorance, selfishness happens. That's according to yoga. Tatra niratishayam sarpajna bhijam. In Īśvara lies the source of all knowledge. Niratishayam means highest, unsurpassed. Sarvagnya, jna means knowledge. Sarvagnya means omniscience, all knowledge. Bijam, this is the seed. Īśvara is the seed for all knowledge. In fact, Dakshinamurti is considered the Adi Guru, the teacher of all teachers. So in the and in the Bhagavad Gītā, Bhagavan says in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gītā, it talks about incarnations. So he says, tells Arjuna, I taught imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham apyayam vivasvan manave praha manurikshvakave bravit evam parampara praptim imam rajarsayo viduhu sakaleneha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. Long time ago, I taught it to the sun and all these people, but because of the passage of time, this knowledge has been lost. And that's why I'm teaching it to you again, he says. So the Īśvara is considered the source of knowledge. Logically also, Swami Hariharananda says, in the beginning of a creation, so there's a cycle, right? How this information, where does it come from? It has to come from somewhere. Īśvara is the source. When the rishis meditated, in fact, the Bhagavatam, everything is symbolic. I told you, right? Great symbolism. Brahma was born from the navel of Vishnu. There's a lotus, and from the lotus, Brahma is born. Everything was dark. Brahma was terrified, apparently. The only word he heard is tap, that is perform tapas, meditate. And then Brahma meditated for thousands of years, and all this knowledge came to him through meditation. So for the rishis also, all these are Apaurushaya-pramanam, they call it. The rishis don't put their name. I am the one who wrote it. They don't say that. It is just transmitted to them through meditation. So Īśvara is the source of all that knowledge. Okay. All right. Sapurpeshamapi guru kale nanavacchedat. Īśvara is the teacher. Purvesham api guru. He is the Purvesham, means the previous teachers. He is the teacher. Api means also. He is even the teacher, or here api means even. He is the teacher of even the most ancient teachers. Purva means ancient times. Even the most ancient teachers, he is the teacher, or he or she or it or whatever you call it. And it is unlimited by time. Kalena anavacchedat. It's uninterrupted. There's no time. So time, space only happens in creation, but Īśvara is beyond time and space. Okay. Now scientists apparently are saying how space and time, space can be warped, time, can be changed, all these things. But the entity called Īśvara is simply beyond all this. Īśvara was present with his or her or its full powers in the beginning of the present cycle, and so was it at the beginning of all the past creations. So, so the question sometimes, Vedanta argues very logically. So for those who have a logic bent of mind, they love Vedanta. All the professors, scientists, they love Vedanta because it's not faith-based. If you don't believe in this God, you will go to hell. That is not there. It's all about logic. So they like it. And here there is you may ask the question, if every guru needed a human guru to teach, the chain would go back infinitely and knowledge could never have begun. And that is why it's called anavastha dosha. That is why Vachaspati Mishra and Swami Hariharananda Saraswati argue that at the beginning of the cosmic cycle, the first beings have no human teachers. They receive everything from Īśvara. And the Dakshinamurti Stotram also, it is a beautiful stotram that we have seen. Here it says, Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmutramānandamurtim Swatmaramam Mudita Badanam Dakshinamurti Mire. So Dakshinamurti is considered the teacher, Indra of all the teacher of all the teachers. So he is Acharya Indram, means Indra means king. So king of all teachers or teacher of all teachers is Dakshinamurti. Okay, so that is as far as teacher of all teachers. And this is a very important point. So I'll take a little bit of time. It is actually a very, very, very technical point also. You can approach it in different ways. Most important thing is this one thing that you can remember from this Īśvara part. This is the one. Tasya vachaka pranavaha. The syllable designating Īśvara is pranava, or the mystic syllable Om. Okay. Now, science now has done research. When you chant Om, it stimulates the vagus nerve, apparently. Okay. The unique object, I'll tell you why Om. Okay, then we'll go into Mandukya Upanishad, which talks about the symbolism of Om to all the three states. Those who attended Dakshinamurti Stotram, they would know this symbolism. The Jagrat Avastha, waking state, Swapna Avastha, that is the dream state, and the Sushupti or the deep sleep state. This is A, U, M. So Om is the combination of, it's not two words, it is A, U, Ma. So when you do this, the words of Sandhi make it Om. A, U becomes O, Ma, Ma, So Om. Now, pay attention to this. This gives the logic for Om. Physical objects can be known without names, right? Let's say there's a person called Rama. There is a chair. I don't have to, I forget this person's name, but I remember everything about this person. That is possible. This chair, I forget the name of the chair, but I remember how comfortable it felt. Every detail about it, I remember sitting on the chair. So abstract relationships require language to be grasped mentally. When you say father or mother, you symbolize a specific relationship derived from a thought process. So it is a very general thing. So it creates a set of sounds, or however people, language, whatever people use to visualize it. It creates certain ripple in the mind. Father. Oh, when you say father, you just visualize, this person's father, this way, this way, this way. Similarly, the concept of Īśvara requires a symbol to be thought of. Om is that necessary symbol. Om is uniquely chosen because it brings unparalleled calmness to the mind. So is this point clear? So to denote Īśvara, it is through Om, because it's like father or mother. You need the word to symbolize it. Whereas a person like Catherine, Rama, whoever that is, you forget the name, it's okay. You can still have thoughts about the person, or a chair, or any object, elephant. Oh, I forgot what that animal is called, that shark, what was it called, that fish, what was it called? You don't need to, but you know everything about that. But these things like a father, it creates a ripple of language in the mind, and Īśvara is the same. So you need this sound to connect with the Īśvara. So that sound is Om. Okay. Tajjapas tadartha bhavanam. One should repeat it and contemplate on its meaning. This sutra is the practical instruction. So in 23, we saw Patanjali said surrender to Īśvara is the path to Samadhi. 24 to 26, he's defined who Īśvara was. He was the ancient guru, untouched by time, all that he defined in 3 sutras, seed of all knowledge, purveshamapi guru, kalena anavachyedat, uninterrupted by time. And in 27, he revealed that Om is the sound symbol for Īśvara. Now the yogi asked, okay, I know who Īśvara is, how I can understand about him. What do I do with this Om? One should repeat it as japa, tad artha bhavanam, also contemplate on the meaning. Okay. Now comes the 3 states. So Om is A, U, Ma. A represents the waking state. That is linked to our 3 bodies. Do you remember? Does anybody want to tell what our 3 bodies are? We have 3 bodies inside of us. And then there's a consciousness. Can anyone say?
Stula Sharira, Sukshma
Yes.
Sharira, Karana Sharira.
Yes. Stula Sharira is the gross body. That is the physical body. Sukshma Shariram refers to the mind, the prana, the senses, everything, the cognition behind the senses, not the golakam. Golakam is the organ, the ear, knows all that. No, this is the cognition behind the senses. That is all. So there are about 19 of these pancha prana, the organs of action, organs of sensing. All these constitute the sukshma shariram, or the subtle body. The subtle body is what transmigrates after death. The physical body is gone. The physical body has the least duration, 80, 100 years, max 120 years. Then the subtle body is there from pralaya, from creation, shrishti, until pralaya, or until you get liberated. Then the karana shariram is a mysterious thing. I won't go into much detail. That is like the seed. If you think I will do all atrocities, wait till the pralayam, which is the cycle, right? There's a big bang, or whatever you call it, srishti, then sthiti, then pralayam. Pralayam means a great dissolution. If you think you can wait until this and escape karma, sorry, good. Everything is stored in the seed form. In the karana means seed. It's a reason, the seed form in the karana shariram. So that is then that represents the deep sleep, because in karana shariram the mind is also dissolved. When mind is dissolved, what is there? There is like it's like what you experience in deep sleep. Deep sleep is the closest to experiencing the karana shariram. That is called sushupti avastha, and the swapna avastha is where the mind is working, recollecting everything from. That's the dream state. Okay, there's a silence before and after. That is the most important thing. That's called amatraha. That represents the pure consciousness. Okay. Mechanics of japa and chanting. Japa means chanting. Bhavana means meditative contemplation. Japa stabilizes the mind, and bhavanam purifies the heart. Okay. Now, this is also an important thing. When you do this, it's unification of sound and idea. So the supreme idea, that's the Īśvara, and the supreme sound is Om. Emotion is a key, and it acts like an anchor in a storm. So we'll see. So the human mind, how do you unify sound and idea? Human mind is constantly associating sounds with ideas. And this practice is harnessed for the spiritual purpose here. By deliberately associating the supreme sound Om with the supreme idea Īśvara, you create a mental pathway that leads you away from worldly thought. And Swami Hariharanandaranya, he stresses the emotion. He stresses that bhavam is not a cold intellectual analysis. It implies a feeling of devotion, love, and reverence. You're not just thinking about God, you're trying to feel the presence. With this emotional connection, you get the benefits. Without that, it becomes dry and mechanical. And when you do it in the right way, when the mind is agitated by distractions, the yogi grabs the sound of Om through japa and he contemplates on something bigger. Once the mind is stabilized by the sound, they can move to a deeper practice of contemplating the meaning. So the sound is the gross support, the meaning is the subtle support, bhavanam. So japa, chant, artha bhavanam. So that kind of takes it. So japa is like a gross thing to put a full stop for you to stop worrying. Then to become calm, you have to contemplate on the meaning. Artha bhavanam. Okay, so far everything clear? And we saw that, I'm not going to repeat the story of Dhruva. That's how he gained, he was able to get to that steady state, because he chanted the 12 syllable Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Devaya. It starts with the Om again. Okay. Tata pratyak chetanadigamo pyantaraya bhavascha. From mantra japa dawns the knowledge of the inner self. Also, obstacles to samadhi disappear. Tataha, from that, pratyak chetanam, the inward, that is pratyak means reverse, inward chetana, it's a consciousness, that is the inner self. Adhigamaha means realization. It is the attainment of the knowledge. And so, tata pratyak chetana adhigamaha, from mantra japa dawns knowledge of your consciousness, the inner self. Also, api, also, antarayaha abhavahascha. Antaraya means obstacles. Patanjali is going to next talk about the obstacles very soon. Abhavaha, they are all removed. So it's a very easy path. But that's why Patanjali gives special importance. So in 27 we saw Īśvara and the symbol Om. 28 we saw what will happen when we chant Om with repetition and bhavana. So bring one-pointedness to the mind of the yogi who is engaged. So then the glory of the chanting reveals the supreme Puruṣa. Swamiji says the process of Īśvara-praṇidhāna has to be processed in the heart. Okay, and it is not a cold process. Okay, so we shall end the class here.